Okay, now we're going to talk about the really rich striping functionality in Minion Backup, because there's a lot of power here and there's some really cool things that you can do here. Basically, you can set up any scenario you need to. So to stripe a backup is really easy. All you've got to do is have multiple active paths in the settings path table. And that's this guy right here. Let me get there. Sorry, I was looking at something else. So right here, the settings path table. So we've already got a basic video on the settings path table, but I wanted to specifically talk about striping here because we didn't really cover it much in there. So we're going to use Minion default. So what I'm saying here, using Minion default for all of these, is I want all of the backups to be striped to these 3 drives. So right now it's just 3 different folders because it's on my laptop, but it's backups, backups 2, and backups 3. Now, when you stripe a backup across multiple drives, it's really important that you set the retention hours to all be the same. Because if you don't, you're going to have some files in your stripe are going to be deleted on a different schedule than others, and that's not going to be good at all, right? You're going to have incomplete backups, and when you go to restore something, you're going to be missing files. So if you stripe something, then make sure that you keep all of your retention hours the exact same for all of the stripes. And again, they all have to be equal to true. Is active all has to be equal to true for them to take effect. So the way it's going to work is you just define the drives that you want, and Minion Backup is smart enough to cycle through all of these drives. So let's take a look at how this works a little bit. We've got 3 of these defined, and we're going to run it against the bit database again, and we're going to use 150 gigs. So when I do this, you can see here in the backup path that it's striping between backups, backups 2, backups 3, then it starts over again from backups, backups 2, backups 3, and it keeps going. I've got 15 files specified in my tuning, but I've only got 3 locations specified. So it's just going to cycle through those locations until it's done. So if I were to take this back down to 1, then it would only use that 1. If I were to take this to 50, I have no idea what it's set for right now for 50 gigs, but I've got 4, and you can see how it goes 1, 2, 3, and then starts back over again at 1 again. So it's smart enough to realize, now watch, let's take this and let's disable number 3. Let's set that to 0. So now is active is off for this last one. So now it's only going to stripe between those 2. So now 1, 2, 1, 2, right? If I take this back up to 150, then it's going to do 15 files, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I can even look at that statement in case you don't believe me. Let's put that statement right here. And now I'll format this a little bit for you. So let me do a replace there, and I'll line all those up with a little bit of regex magic there. And now you can see all these are going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'm just cycling through both of those. So as you decide to bring disks in and out of the fold, Minion Backup is smart enough to use those disks. Now I can add this one back in, set that back to 1, and then you will see it pick back up again. Where are we? Right there. You'll see it pick back up again with 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if I only had 1, then it would just back it up to all of them. So let's set this one to false and this one to false. So both of these are inactive now. And now if I run this again, I'm going to back up all 15 of those to the same drive, to the same location. So you see how easy it is to set this up. Okay, now let's take a look at another special scenario. Let's say that you want to stripe these in a specific order. So let's turn these guys back on because we're gonna be striping. I know. Let me get rid of that. Sorry about that. Maybe escape. There we go. Okay, so I want to turn that back on. Now, I want to do these in reverse order because for whatever reason, I want to do these, you know, I want to make sure that, you know, they're done in the order I want. I don't know why I would want that, but I'm going to go 10, 5, and 0. So again, if you're familiar with Minion reindex and how it works, we do the exact same thing here. This is a weighted system. So the higher number prevails. So this is actually ordered in descending order. We did it like that because it makes it easier to update things when you've got a lot of values. So in this case, I would expect to see it to be ordered in 3, 2, 1, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at that. There we go. 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. Now if I were to change this one, where am I? Now if I were to change this one to say 15 instead, it should be 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So you see, you can even order the stripes. You can even order which way you want it to be striped. Now this isn't going to come in handy too much here. I think that's an extreme edge case. Where it's really going to come in handy is when you go to copying files, and we'll talk about that more in file actions. But in short, if you have a copy line specified in here, then the path order will become very important, because if you're copying it to multiple locations, then you can say I want to copy it to this one first, then this one, then this one, then this one, and so you can choose the order that you want to copy the files in. But for straight backups, that's not going to be as important. Now, the same thing holds true here that holds true for all of them, right? This is the default. If I want a different database to be striped to different locations, or if I want it to be striped to, 5 locations instead of 3 or whatever, then all I have to do is enter in database specific rows here, and then set up the paths for that specific database. So it's very easy to set up different databases going to different paths. So it's just really, really simple. Let's do one example real quick before we go. We've got Minion default. We've been doing bit. So you know what? Let's set up a bit row in here, and let's copy one of these guys just to make the config easier. So I'll copy that, and I'll say paste. And I'll do one more, paste. There we go. Good. So I'll say bit. So these are the overrides for the bit database. And I want all of the bits going to, let's make this really easy. Let's say Z. There we go. So I want Z backups 3, Z backups 3. Let's say, just to make it even more obvious, let's say Z backups 5 and Z backups 6, even though that's not really what's going to happen, right? Even though those aren't, you would start over with 1 and 2 probably. And again, because I'm striping, I want both of these set. In fact, I want them to have a different retention period. I want to keep this one for 2 days on disk instead of the default 1 day, because maybe this database is a little bit more important and I want to keep 2 days on disk, right? Path order of 10, let's go ahead and say path order of 0 for both of these, and they're both active. And over here I'll say bit stripe, just so that I know what it's for without having to look at the rest of the config and figure it out. So I want both of these to go to Z, but you know what? Instead of Z, let's put this somewhere else. Let's put this on, NAS1 instead, okay? And we'll change this to NAS. There we go. So now I've got one of them going to local and one of them going to NAS, but they're both the bit stripe. Okay, so let's see what we have. Let's start with bit at 150. Notice here I've got it going to Z and then NAS1, Z, NAS1, Z, NAS1. It's cycling through all of them. Let's go ahead and grab this backup statement here. And let's get rid of this last one that we did. There we go. Let's do some of our regex magic to get those things lined up for us. So I'm looking for that, and I want to replace it with that. Perfect. That should give it to me. Good. I gotta go all the way back over here. There we go. So now you can see in the line I forgot to put a colon there. So I need to put my Z colon, right? There we go. We won't worry about that for this example, but I've got Z, NAS, Z, NAS, Z, NAS, right? Now if I add one more to it, let me copy that row. And let me paste it. And just to show you how easy it is, let's do another one locally, and we'll call this one k:\\, and we'll leave it there. And again, since it's part of that stripe, I want it to all have the 48 hours. There we go, and it's set to true, and it's a bit stripe, absolutely perfect. Now, watch, Minion Backup will automatically pick up that new drive. Z, NAS, K, Z, NAS, K, Z, NAS, K. It's absolutely perfect. It's exactly what I wanted. But let's make sure that the default still picks up for the other databases. And now I've got 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. And you can see here that I've got all of these guys defined for Minion default. I've got 2 guys set up for Minion default, which is 1 and 2. And then that's what I've got right here, 2, 1, because 2 is 15, and it's got order precedence over that one. And that is how you stripe backups in Minion Backup. It is extremely easy and extremely flexible, and all I would have to do is set a new backup type, so I can send log backups to one stripe, I can send diffs to another stripe, I can send fulls to another stripe, I can send everybody to one location except for this database and this backup type. It's extremely flexible, and it requires no extra jobs. You do it all right here. You get your config worked out. You test your config using this SP, using the backup statement get SP, and you're golden. If you haven't seen the basic paths video, go ahead and look at it. But here I wanted to show you specifically about striping, since we didn't really cover that.